Big nose sticking out.
Hey, it's Johnny Flynn and his two good friends were all three plaintiffs in a federal lawsuit that is very, very hairy at this point. We filed a lawsuit a year and a half ago for 5G, and what it's turned into is a gang-stalking, Department of Homeland Security, censorship, and targeted individual nightmare. Okay, so you can't poke the bear as often as we do and not expect retaliation. But what I would say is this is extreme. Okay, so this is Chris, this is Heather, I'm plaintiff 1, there's a guy named Phil, plaintiff 2. We have 95 John Does. I filed a case a year ago, put it in. The judge, for the first time, tells us about 10 days ago he's going to dismiss the case. Well, I updated the writ 21 times. Okay, so I kept adding other plaintiffs, adding other defendants. So right now we have Richard Blumenthal, Jim Himes, Senator Murphy, Gillibrand, Schumer. So we're not exactly not poking the bear, but it's okay that we get dropped phones, a lot of, spam calls and whatever, but in the course of this activity, I learned about Heather's ongoing nightmare and Chris's ongoing nightmare. Now, we have a lot of other people we associate with who all have an ongoing nightmare. One gentleman, who I won't mention, has 11 false arrests. One has 4 recent false arrests. I mean, the gentleman I'm talking about had his house, $3.5 million house, stolen. You might know who I'm talking about. You might not. It doesn't really matter. It seems that there's a long turnstile of people dealing with the court, since the court hasn't had any trials since March of 2021, that you can't get due process. And, they're saying, you can't blame the court. We're going to have a Zoom call meeting. They're unconstitutional. There's a lot of problems with the court. So let's get back to the current situation. In the course of going to court to support each other, which is what the Stamford Superior Court does not want, there are over 20 judges with felony habeas corpus writs against them. Now there's 3 appellate court judges. Now there's a federal judge, okay? But what we're describing here is basically what happened to Heather turned into what happened to Sam, which happened to Andrew, which happened to Chris. And in support of that, it's happening to me. But we want to play a short video, and I'm going to interrupt the video. The conversation took about 4 minutes, of which I missed the first minute because I was not expecting a call from the Norwalk police at 9 a.m. in the morning.
Tell them what date this happened, Johnny.
This happened about, I don't know,
a few days ago.
4 days ago. But, so here's the video. Here we are, here's the video. I guess you don't need much of a screen to see what's going on, and I'm going to just play a short part. I got threatened at gunpoint, and you guys didn't arrest the guy.
Okay, John, I didn't do it. I have nothing to do with that.
No, but your brother cloned my phone.
Okay, John, all I'm saying is use my name one more fucking time and put me in an Oxycontin ring on Twitter.
Yeah.
Watch what happens to you.
Is that a threat?
I'm not going to do anything.
Is that a threat? Well, when you start talking about a guy's family, it becomes a threat. Now, one of my sons is tough as nails, but the other one is a total pushover and could not handle what they are doing to him. And they are doing things. And to be told that your family's they're going to go after your family? Well, hold on a second. Heather's family is in crisis mode already. She has a niece, right? You want to talk about her?
Yeah.
Lovely lady.
Yep, my niece was in full arrest. I went out to California. I'm a nurse. I'm a respiratory nurse. So that's my specialty, taking care and taking people on putting people on and off ventilators. So my niece went into a full arrest, and she was given a 1% chance on life. So I was there at her bedside for about 3.5 weeks. I had to come back to Connecticut because the judge wouldn't allow me any more extension on a case where I am definitely the plaintiff, so I should be able to dictate, when I move forward and when I don't move forward against individuals that, since I was drugged and raped, these individuals have been arrested numerous times by other people for other incidents. The doctor, this was a doctor that I worked for, Dr. A.J. Ahuja, he was arrested, and that was a federal arrest. They fined him $200,000 and no jail time. It was all about money. Then shortly thereafter, just a few short weeks later, he continued to distribute controlled substances after being told not to by the feds, the DEA specifically in Bridgeport, and he was rearrested. The Stamford police intervened because, as we know, Dr. Ahuja is being protected by the Stamford court and the Stamford Police Department.
Yeah, let me interrupt. I was arrested for doing a video with a guy where we talked about affidavits in our possession where different sexual assault victims, let me introduce you to Chris. Chris was a patient of Dr. Ahuja who had an injury. You want to tell a little bit about
Sure.
how you got in the boat?
Sure. My name is Chris. I live in Stamford, Connecticut, Fairfield County. And, I was a patient of Dr. Ahuja's, and I was in the construction business and the contracting business, and I was referred to him to get pain meds. It was it was understood that he was a pill doctor, and it was easy to get scripts filled with him, and you could get very strong oxys and narcotics, and essentially controlled substances, really, but prescription drugs, and that's how I ended up getting entangled with the Ahujas. There was a
Let me interrupt.
Yep.
Let me urge everyone to watch the Netflix series that just came out about Purdue Pharma, because the bribery has led to, Nick Ahuja, who has threatened us, okay? Chris got a brick thrown through his window that said, basically, we're going to shoot you in the back of the head like we shot Heather's stepson, okay? Yep. So keep in mind,
Point blank.
the stepson got shot and went to the hospital and spit the bullet out and lived, but he's got handicaps now. So what I'm saying is, the three of us are plaintiffs in a federal lawsuit. It's on the screen here. Let me flip the screen. Okay, this is the case. We just updated it on August 31st. So this is version 21. We are now on version 22. We started with 21 defendants. We're up to 54 defendants. They are heavyweights. Here, Stephanie Thomas, Secretary of State. Scott Bates, the lawyer for the Secretary of State of Connecticut. Gabby Rosenberg, Secretary of State. Now, these people lied in transcripts, in court documents that we have. That's why they're in here. We just added the Chief Court Administrator, Judge Elizabeth Bizzuto. Why? Because of Administrative Procedure Act violations. So over here, we have a handful of the 100 plaintiffs. Phil Marie had a colostomy, went to the hospital, his colon exploded. He had a colostomy bag added. When they removed the colostomy bag, they added a 5G biometric chip that shocks him daily. So each person in the case as we go, and there's 100 at least, there's 2 million targeted people in America, by the way. I don't know if you know this, but I am on the Havana Syndrome board, okay? I was asked to be on the Havana Syndrome board, and The judge thinks, Meyer, in this case, that everything I've ever said is conspiracy theory, okay? Oh, Johnny, you said that 5G is going to create twice the radiation of our current sun. And I say yes. And he goes, that's absurd. Well, do the math, you know? I say that if 5G, I'm saying right now that 5G was created to do a global election fraud for the World Economic Forum. And I can prove in my other case, which is on this computer, that Connecticut used, ready, GEMS, LHS, ESS, NoInc, softwares, and in the case of, say, name a state, Nevada, Gartner Group in Stamford hacked Nevada, or, in the case of Arizona, Pima County got flipped by Gartner Group. Maricopa County had 171,000 votes flipped by Gartner Group. Exit 6, Stamford, Connecticut. And if you go through the case, not this case, it's related now, because what we're saying is, while doing the election fraud case, I ran for U.S. Senator. None of my petitions, 57,962 signatures I collected. Heather signed. I have Heather's signature on this other computer where, she wrote me in as a write-in, and I qualified, but I was never put on the absentee ballot. So what I'm saying is,
So did Chris.
we backdoored into a nightmare where all three of us got threatened at gunpoint. And you heard the recording of a guy, I'd rather not mention his name. Okay, leave it at that. There are marshals involved. I've been tossed out of many courts physically. I'm not going to go there. Certain things we're not divulging at this time, but listen to this. If the three of us filed protective orders against a maniac who did time, 18 months I believe, for bribing cops from Connecticut to Texas in the Ahuja case, U.S. versus Ahuja, he got caught bribing police and Oxycontin pushers, okay?
Heavy money launderers.
Right. And now she got threatened on May 30th. Chris got threatened earlier, and I got threatened later. But I filed 2 protective orders. Chris filed 1 protective order. You were denied.
Yep.
Heather was denied. So why are people being threatened at gunpoint in a federal lawsuit? Plaintiffs. Phil Marie got falsely arrested. Andrew Pritchard's on this list. 4 false arrests. Sam Magliari is in this case. And Sam Magliari got arrested 11 times. And Judge McShane swindled his bond. We're saying there's not just problems of mortgage fraud, EMAP fraud. I'm a victim of mortgage fraud. Heather's a victim of mortgage fraud.
Yep.
You are too?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. So here we go. If we're all targeted financially, that's a horse of a different color, okay? But then to be framed, okay? Andrew was framed. Andrew did not have a handgun, and he was not on his own, not on a property where there was a protective order. No. And he never emailed the person who had a protective order against him. So here we go. A guy who stole Andrew's house was able to get a protective order, and Andrew wasn't, him being the victim. Hello? I never threatened Judge White. I've never met Judge White. I've never spoken to Judge White. Isn't it funny I'm running for U.S. Senate? And the Senate Majority Leader, Truglia, signs a warrant for my arrest? If that's not political assassination, what's happening to Trump or the January 6 people is happening in Connecticut on a smaller scale. But as I talk to people in New York, it's happening in Suffolk County, Nassau County. It's happening in New Jersey. Right now, in this lawsuit on the screen, we have 18 states who want to join. I took New York and New Jersey out recently because the judge said this case is frivolous. I said, really? It's about radiation, Your Honor. Hamden, Connecticut's Wi-Fi is 6 million times the limit. Do you want to go down in time as the judge who killed everyone in the state of Connecticut? Because Seymour, Connecticut, 2.5 times the legal limit. Let me just basically describe what 5G is. 9 RF detaches your retina. 10, autism. 11, cancer. 11 RF. RF metered per square meter of radiation that operates the tower. What I'm telling you is autism, infertility, and then as you go up the scale, Connecticut set the limit to 1,000. Not 100, 1,000. 700 makes your hair fall out immediately, okay? Like the next day. So that's pulse radiation. So you're not subject to a continuous stream of radiation. It jumps 9, 12, 15, 1,100, 2,000, 2,100, 1,900. So we do have a problem in Connecticut because I went to every Catholic parochial school in the county and not one was below 1,800. The Home Depot in Norwalk, 1,800. The Trumbull Mall, 2,000. There are locations like Seymour, 29,000. There are places in Hamden, 60,000. The limit's 1,000. The judge knows, he should know. I updated this writ 21 times. He never bothered to read it. So he wrote me a 12-page decision saying, I'm going to dismiss the case unless you do these things, which we had already done in the later versions of the writ. The writ started at 35 pages. We are 129 pages long. Okay? When we added Motorola, we added some interesting facts. All 5 of the Motorola developers of the cell phone, all 5 people who designed the cell phone died of brain cancer. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that the Chernobyl catfish averaged 12 feet because of genetic mutation. So here we go. We're in a respiratory problem with COVID. I get it. I believe it's man-made. I don't believe the gain of function was ethical. It certainly violated the law. You can go down certain rabbit holes all you want all day long. I'm just saying radiation is not conspiracy theory. You see what this is in my hand? This is a meter to measure it. Not that you need to know, but I'll tell you what the measurement. Oh, I need a new battery. They're in the desk over there. Never mind. It's probably 1,000 in here because here's the router. We're surrounded by 6 computers. You know, we all have a phone. Add them all together. When 2 people sit in the same car with a Verizon phone, that's 39 megahertz each. It's 78 megahertz between 2 people in a car. There's a heterodyning occurs where it creates a force field and you get captured within the Wi-Fi heterodyning sphere. The thing is, the properties of water change at 60 megahertz. The atoms in the water molecule speed up because of the ions. Radiation in the phone is non-ionized radiation. There's a difference, folks. And when you're sitting with your phone in your pocket, God forbid you have 2. You carry 2 phones, you're subjecting yourself to enough radiation that your cells won't duplicate, won't replicate. In other words, your brain cells regenerate. Every couple of years, every cell in your body is replaced. But when you're carrying a cell phone, it stops because the vibration of the molecules in your DNA, in your atoms, cause repercussions. So let's get back on topic of what happened here. the three of us are in this lawsuit with other people. Now, Phil Marie is not built for speed, and he's reluctant to sign whenever you redo the writ. You have to all re-sign the document. Now, seeing that he was strip searched, he is getting shocked daily, and he is tortured by 5G. He's reluctant. Andrew's reluctant to sign. Sam, I didn't even ask, okay? What I'm saying is, the fact that we're being targeted because we're in this lawsuit is a problem, because it's the only lawsuit I've ever heard of where the judge allows the plaintiffs to be threatened by marshals, by cops, by people working for the judge, and people who are claiming. Here we go. We're going to get into it right now. Heather was Dr. Ahuja's nurse. Heather witnessed the drugs being given out freely. Chris here got a prescription, required to give half the drugs back to the doctor. What he did with them, we don't know. We just know that the wife, I am told, was overdosed. The son overdosed intentionally. Why? Because they knew too much. This is a big deal. That
So
you have
right
a doctor.
here-
Yeah, go
hang
ahead.
on. Right here, I want to say overdose is one thing. These people overdosed and died.
Right. So 108,000 Americans in the last 12 months died of oxy overdose. Okay, now Purdue was legalized heroin in pill form. What happens now is that it was overprescribed. None of the habits have changed. It's way more toxic and potent than they ever led you to believe. Okay? And, you know, you look at the state of Connecticut as they go after guns. We had the same number of gun deaths in 1965 as we do now. But in 1965, we had 100 opioid deaths. Now we have 108,000. Do you think we have an opioid problem or a gun problem? Maybe the people with the guns are on opioids. Did you ever figure that out, Bob Duff? No, of course not. Because the bribery is the point. The mules are bringing drugs in. The illegal aliens crossing the border are carrying weapons. They're not vaccinated. They're carrying oxy. They're carrying fentanyl, which is even worse. So what we're saying is, okay, you heard a threat. I'm not afraid of the guy. He's not going to hurt me, okay? I know the guy. But don't tell me it's okay for witness intimidation. Stealing our phones at court is a problem, folks, because that's evidence in this case on that phone. I can show you my phone today. Here it is. Went to a park that's a cleanup site in Norwalk. It's surrounded by fencing now. It's on a Superfund site. It's a chemical dump. And the kids were playing, riding down the slide, landing in the chips, and let the chips fall where they may. There are new signs up saying no dogs allowed. People have been going to Oyster Shell Park every month for different events. They had 3,000 people there recently for a pride flag thing, on a Pride Month thing. Dancing around on the grass, bare feet, VOCs, heavy metals, PCBs, totally toxic, and now it's getting fenced in. So, don't tell us that the state of Connecticut is doing its job when it comes to the Department of Environmental Protection, which is involved in 5G. Why? Because the Department of Environment Protection is changing the environment such that the Wi-Fi readings will detach your retina, make your children autistic, and cancer, all these other problems. So what we're saying is here, we're going to go the distance, but we're going to have to keep these people in check by using Twitter. So we would really appreciate your support If you're going through the same things we are, and I'm sure people are, but the case that we were working on unearthed the fact that Danbury, Connecticut hacked Pennsylvania. Hey, it's a fact. Norwalk hacked North Carolina. Colchester hacked Oklahoma. Wisconsin was hacked and they changed the president of the United States. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan were hacked and we changed the president of the United States. It's all involved in this case. The judge thinks it's conspiracy theory, but if you knew that Chinese nationals bought Dominion software on October 20th, 2022, 2 weeks before the election, and that Chinese nationals are running it from Seidel, which is in Spain. The servers are in Germany, Iran, and Italy. And you wonder why the state of Connecticut keeps saying the tabulators are not connected to the internet, when in fact No Ink is, Poll Pads is, LHS, ESS, Diebold, all the softwares that Connecticut use are attached to Yukon. It's attached to the internet. Trinity College hacked a state. If you go down the list, there's over 20 states we influenced. Connecticut did hack 20 states. But the states that were hacked by Gartner Group in Stamford are not the same states. So there are more states that have been hacked through Connecticut, and we have all the data. Kohler, Ted Bromley, Scott Bates, all these people, Ada Carini, Matt Blumenthal runs the election committee for the state, ran his own father's campaign, locked the signatures that I collected, and blocked 11 other candidates from the absentee ballot. If you weren't on the absentee ballot in this race, you didn't have a chance, folks. So what I'm saying is the corruption here in Corrupticut is beyond repair, A. You can't get due process in the courtroom. The courts are closed. You can't bring a phone in the court. Why not? Because they're afraid of you recording what they're talking in public about. Let's talk about what they're talking about in public. Let me ask Heather to describe why she can't get a fair trial.
Oh, where do I begin?
Face the camera, Heather.
Where do I begin?
Well, the transcript of Randolph states that any associate of Sam Magliari will never get a fair trial.
That's just one aspect. But in my particular case, the
Right.
very criminal judge that lets Dr. Ahuja off for drug dealing with a $10,000 donation to charity and accelerated rehab after he had already been caught by the feds and refused to stop dealing drugs.
Let's just make the point. The doctor got caught issuing prescriptions after he lost his license, and Judge White...
No, the other way around.
What?
The doctor was arrested by the feds.
Right.
That's the DEA in
Right.
Bridgeport.
Right.
Went to trial. Judge Janet Hall, that's the head federal judge of Connecticut, gave him a $200,000 fine because they made up this story that Dr. Ahuja gave all these pills to his family members and he didn't keep records and it was just an error. So they told him, they pulled his license for distributing controlled substances. Mm-hmm. And very shortly thereafter, I don't know, it might have been a few weeks, maybe a month, he was turned in by multiple pharmacists for continuing to prescribe controlled substances. And then Stamford PD, I went down to the Stamford Police Department, and the desk sergeant wanted to know, is Ahuja in here again? He turned around and he opened the back door where I guess the prisoners are. What is he doing here? Why haven't the feds picked him up yet? And that's when I realized he wasn't even going to get transferred.
So
back.
he's a protected guy. I mean, I went to court with Chris. Let's just get a comment from Chris.
Yep.
What happened with Kavanewski? Because Kavanewski denied my protected
I mean, I think you guys are just tapping into it. It's really a corrupticate. This is the judicial system. I'll just talk about that. That's my experience with this. Unbelievable corruption with the courts and the judges. They protect these individuals like Dr. Ahuja, who assaulted and raped Heather, did the same to myself, is a drug pusher, worked hand in hand with Purdue Pharma. There's reason to believe he was protected by the Stamford PD, perhaps the Darien PD, Norwalk Police Department. He also had a satellite office in Darien where my assault occurred. But the issue the issue we're talking about here is the corruption at the judicial level, and it's like this spider web that goes into all aspects of policing, federal agents. Why aren't these folks, like Heather was just talking about, why aren't these people paying the price by being picked up by the feds? There's immunity. They're protected individuals. Okay, all this with 5G that Johnny's talking about, and that's all massive business. Purdue Pharma's billion-dollar companies. Connecticut is I mean,
they got to keep $11 billion.
Super corrupt state.
Now I'm hearing Warren Buffett's going to buy 16% of Purdue. But I want to touch on another aspect.
Right.
The prosecutors. Okay, so Tong asks the Stamford State's attorney to criminally prosecute Purdue, and their response is no, it's too profitable.
Right.
Excuse me? So, in Heather's case, okay, she's threatened at gunpoint by Michael Ahuja in her own driveway
on May
30th.
This year.
And the police want to arrest him, okay? Want to arrest Michael Ahuja.
Stamford PD filed a arrest warrant.
Right. Now, what happened to the warrant?
There was a young officer that came to the lobby. Zoppi. And he was probably...
He's probably 25.
Yeah.
He was unaware of
the history.
Of the history.
Any history.
And he stepped on it. He stepped into it.
He was very, very fair. He was very, very polite. He was gentle, towards me being a victim. In the past 15 years, the way that I've been treated, no human should be treated that way, let alone a person who's been drugged and raped. And these officers know that this happened. There's no question. The Judge Tobin was the one that ruled in the case. I pointed out that just for the first time, maybe a month ago in front of Judge Gennario, that Judge Tobin's a racist. He's an older man.
Want to talk about this?
Yeah, he's an older man, and I've said in different videos that he referred to the pictures of me beaten up. I was beaten black. He referred to those pictures as, to the police officer, it was a big joke to them in the courtroom, on record. Is this a picture of an elephant? That's how I was treated throughout the course of, I was arrested when I was bribed by Dr. Ahuja. They wanted to give me, Dr. Ahuja and his lawyer, Robert Finke from Darien, they wanted to give me $3 million to shut up, to withdraw the case, to tell the police department I made the whole thing up, and they wouldn't.
You should have taken the money.
And they wouldn't hear it. They basically took the letter from me. It was an unsigned, typed bribe that I brought directly from the law office in Darien to the Stamford PD, and I was arrested. I was told, I was under house arrest.
Well, let me mention, the reason why we went down this path here is because Zoppi wanted to arrest Michael Ahuja, and State's Attorney Bavona prevented the arrest. So here we go. We got to ask, If it's so profitable, and the Ahujas are claiming they bought politicians, elected officials, judges even, and named a judge, is that our fault?
Evidence gets destroyed.
That he's bragging? That he's, I bought this judge, I own this judge, I'm gonna walk.
This is their common thing. We could bring probably 10 people in that would be willing, that are strong, brave people, to come forward, which they came to the courtroom when I was at trial, but they were never asked to take the stand.
Heather,
make the statement about
we
the
tried to
victim
speak up.
advocate.
Yes, Heather and I tried to speak up in court, and we were told victims don't have a voice.
Yeah.
That's the policy
yeah.
of the Stamford Court.
Who was the judge?
That was Hudock. Okay,
And-
Judge White
and
also.
Judge White.
Judge
is-
White, they're criminals, and they're probably drug addicts and pedophiles.
Now hold on, because part of the healing process is for the victim to be able
course.
to say what
At
happened.
any
vic-
point
it's
in
a
time,
victim's impact
after the
statement.
Me Too movement, at any point in time, physical abuse victims and sexual abuse victims can come forward. Okay?
And do a victim's impact statement.
Victim impact statement. We were never allowed to make that. We were told to leave the courtroom.
And
This
we-
is corrupticate.
This is months and months we tried
Evidence
to...
gets destroyed. Tapes get lost.
Actually, yes, in Heather's case, they destroyed everything the day before the deposition. That's what they admitted to.
Yeah,
Right.
the police officer was subpoenaed by the other side, not by my two attorneys. He was subpoenaed by Dr. Ahuja's attorney, very resistant to coming to the court.
What's his name? Gason?
Yeah, Glenn Gason.
Glenn Gason.
He's a criminal. I mean, he knew that Dr. Ahuja was peddling drugs. Everyone knows
Murder,
what...
Let me
drug
just comment. There are lawyers that I've spoken to that say that the prosecutors lean on them to turn on their own clients. Now, in other words, I could talk about some cases that are foreclosures. It's not as devastating as losing your life, but to be told that for the lawyer to sit there idle at the moment when he's supposed to object to what's being said and says nothing, and then it turns
he's throwing
out
the case. It means he's throwing the case.
yeah, he's going to throw the case. Right.
Right.
Exactly. It comes down to getting paid, getting retained, getting $300-400 an hour, sometimes $500 and $600 an hour, and then throwing the case.
Right.
There's one lawyer who will defend your property and help you keep the property, but he demands a third or half the equity in your home. Now hold on a second.
Wow.
And it happens all the time.
That's
And he's
corrupt.
got many clients, and he owns 37 properties, I believe. I looked at his
What
list
about
of-
Epstein? The guy in...
Oh, Jude Epstein.
Jude
that's
Yeah,
Epstein.
ridiculous.
well, that's
British
all allowed. They
No, he's
put
got
it-
hundreds of
Heather,
thousands.
it's
of
a
cases.
point that
it's all
the
allowed.
Connecticut courts are totally corrupt. These prosecutors are totally corrupt. They're profiting, making millions of dollars. I mean, this is terrible.
Yeah.
This is
No.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are
And
there any
that's what
points,
Johnny's
final
talking
points you
about.
want to make about? You want to say something?
My final point is just that Johnny's doing a service to the community here, bringing all of us victims together, collating us into these various cases, and we're fighting like hell for justice, for the Constitution to be
we
restored.
have to protect each other.
Connecticut is
unfortunately.
gone totally off the deep end. It's a lost state, and the courts, the police, it's a mess. Forget about the schools. We won't even talk about that.
Well, Heather, what would you like to say?
I
that
would
we-
like to say thank you, Johnny. I
Listen, Heather's had
I-
a rough road with her niece who had a leg amputated. She was in a coma. She's 50. She's been flying back and forth from California to Connecticut, and she's always on the phone checking with the niece, and she's a nurse, so...
You saved her life.
She did save her life. She had a bunch of crackpot doctors over there just standing in line to bill,
Right.
and all they care about is the bill.
Right.
and it's no different here in Connecticut. It's probably worse. But I do have something. I don't get much sleep. A couple hours a night. One eye open, and as I was threatened on May 30th, Nothing was done. They come to my home, or were leaving my home, and that's when I was approached by Michael Ahuja. That's Dr. Ahuja's brother. He just recently,
Oh, yeah.
maybe on the 7th.
So we all tried to get him arrested. They all disagreed. And then he assaulted someone else.
Yeah. He's got 3 charges. And this we just found on
Nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
And they never
that's
called
this
us.
month.
The cops come to the house. They say they're going to do something. Nothing ever happens. That's the routine.
This is the point now.
They're a protection racket.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
this
all they
is
are.
the point that now Michael Ahuja, he assaults someone. There was a few charges that this happened this month. And then about
I think
maybe
it happened on August 10th.
Yes. And then on the 25th or 6th, he violated that protection order. Now, lucky for those people, they got a protection order. See, it's as an assault, and it's probably separate from the drug. So they actually did arrest, or maybe it was another new officer from Stamford that doesn't know the background and did the right thing. But as soon as they find out who we are,
Here we go. He had $1,000 bail, and he's gone to jail for money laundering and bribery. Now,
It's a violation.
in the highest
Andrew
degree. In the highest degree.
Andrew
These-
didn't trespass, got arrested for carrying a handgun, which he doesn't have. Ahuja had a handgun that was unregistered. They have no gun registered, so therefore if he had a gun, it had to be unregistered. In an unregistered car. Now, if you drove to the supermarket and a cop noticed that you were not registered, you'd be towed. And you couldn't get your car out of the impound until you paid whatever the taxes were back to, and got re-registered through DMV.
Ahuja was arrested for violation of a protective order. That's a felony. And you get a
And
bond
watch,
of
everyone,
$1,000?
please.
And hold on.
So-
Andrew's bond was $50,000 twice.
Right.
Both times.
Here's my request. I have a request.
Hold on.
This is what I learned. I've been to.
Let's get closer.
Okay. I've been to multiple meetings that are yearly. Thousands of people from all over the country go to see Al Sharpton. And I used to go to those seminars in Washington, D.C. So it's a lot of effort. You have to get in the car at 2 o'clock in the morning to get there on time, etc. And it's an all-day affair. One thing I picked up and I shared with Johnny was Al Sharpton said to all these hundreds of people in the audience, well, you guys are very fantastic for supporting me, for coming out today, and I appreciate that. But I really want I want you guys to come away from this seminar with something that I learned through my years of activism. And what that he shared, and it sticks with me today, is it doesn't matter if we run around, like in the Bible it says, a clanging gong and...
Loud gong clanging.
Yeah. Just squawking about stuff doesn't do any good. What Al Sharpton said was, if you're out there protesting and you have 100 people on a sidewalk, well, they did this, they did that. There you are.
That's the
There you are.
propaganda bell
Yeah.
of an activist from Connecticut, a cool
Yeah.
guy.
So
Fake news.
if you're out there complaining about all of this, but the public may want to help, they might want to really get involved and support us in stopping what's going on. In my particular case, Dr. Ahuja owns my multi-million-dollar property out in California. He stole it. That was because I didn't take a bribe. And the police department and the court system and the federal judges and the appellate court, they allowed this rapist to take my property on top of everything else because I won't shut up. They're trying to take Johnny away from me. Mm-hmm. They're trying to take Chris away by keeping him under arrest and under threat of arrest. Anyone that comes near me ends up getting arrested. I have a friend in Greenwich that was worth well over $300 million.
True.
He got arrested. He's ashamed. He's never...
He was in a coma when they robbed him.
Yeah.
And he came back to life and they thought he was going to die. Guess who's a plaintiff in the 5G case?
I mean, it's this common thread. Someone. So back to the Al Sharpton story. he asks people, don't just go out there and be a clanging gong and, protest. They did this, they did that. We need answers. So our answer is, please come to court. We're going to start giving, through Johnny, if he's kind enough to do all of this.
9/8, you must go to the Bridgeport GA at 10 a.m. to witness the biggest smackdown in court history, which is going on in that court.
Yeah.
What case is it?
Yeah.
It's Sam Magliari.
Okay. Yeah, support us in the courts. We've talked about having rallies and maybe like a press release with a podium in front of one of the courts to talk about the corrupt judges, the corrupt clerks, the
Right.
prosecutors. It's a mess.
9/11. 9/11 is my court date to
Yep.
get I want a protective order against Michael Ahuja. Michael Ahuja beat me, and the judge ordered the close to $40,000 payment because
Back
well
pay.
they messed me up, but that's beside the fact. I still can't I'm a lefty and I don't use my left hand. Now I use my right hand. So, but the bottom line is 9/11. I'm in court in Stamford. I don't know what judge they're going to give me, but Chris, they threatened to kill him. They threatened to shoot him in the head. We've already got my stepson who was shot point blank right in the side of his head. And miraculous.
They threatened my family. I had to move my family out of my home because of threat and because of duress. These are crazy people. The doctor and the entire
Yeah.
Ahuja family, they're protected.
Yeah.
Okay, and all their minions that work
What's
with
it
them.
going to take? When is
Yeah.
the public going to
Purdue
go?
Pharma's a $1 billion company. The Sackler family
It's a
is
$11 billion.
$11 billion company. There's they get a slap on the wrist. Nobody ever has to pay a fine. Nobody
No.
gets punished. They pretend they're going to bring these people to justice. The cops come up there. Oh yeah, we're going to do this, that, and the third. They don't do jack shit.
They haven't
My
done
friend.
anything in Chris Kelly's case.
And they've threatened me, and they've ambushed me. I've been embroiled in legal turmoil since 2006.
Yeah.
17 years, and I've had no headway, and it gets worse. It's a quicksand.
Yeah.
You get
Me,
no
2000.
justice.
I have 196
Right.
threats.
No justice. It's just bullshit. Pardon my French.
So
It's
what
frustrating.
do we give a phone number? What do we do to get the public
Johnny
to?
is the tip of the spear here in Connecticut.
And
Don't say
they have
that.
to. They have to have some way of contacting us so that all the rest of the victims of Dr. Ahuja and Michael Ahuja and Nick Ahuja will come forward. Come forward. Let's group together and let's make ourselves whole again, because that's what the court says. We as victims are to be made whole. Instead, Dr. Ahuja owns my multi-million
Stole your
dollar.
home in
Yeah,
California.
it's close to a $4 million property.
Let me just
He
say-
owns it. Why does a doctor here that drugged and raped me own my property? Because he told me, if you don't retract the criminal charges against me, I am going to take your property. I told them where to shove it, and
They took the
factual,
property.
and they took it 1 month later.
Right.
And the Stamford PD,
Protects
they
them.
protected them. They finally,
They're in on it. They're in on
when
it.
I finally,
Let's wrap it up with what my read is on it. When you had Purdue running Oxy, which is heroin, that was bad. Okay? Look where we're at. When Connecticut took it over, if you don't think those judges are going to protect the state's liability when your kid overdoses,
Dies.
we've already learned the hard way. During the pandemic, I'm not sure if you're all aware of this, they closed the methadone clinics. Okay? So if you had an addiction, you couldn't treat it. Those people went back out on the street and bought what
And
they
relapsed.
could.
Right.
And many of them didn't make it, folks. If you talk to a guy named Brian Merlin from Stamford, he'll tell you how many hands he held of the parents. I had 2 kids' mothers recently approach me, tell me the life story of the Sun. If you watch the Netflix series on Purdue, it's very well done. It has Matthew Broderick playing Richard Sackler. And in the beginning of the show, they say, hey, we did dramatize some of these statements, but I can tell you right now, our kid passed away at age 23. We missed them terribly. Here's pictures of our kids that are no longer with us. In the beginning of every episode, that was the real part, okay? The fake part, now you need to wonder, okay, that if the judges are bought and the prosecutors bribed, which we can demonstrate, I'm not afraid to say it, why...
Should I be afraid to tell the public that Judge White used to come to Dr. Ahuja's office?
You ought to tell him right now.
Okay.
What do you got to lose?
The head criminal judge in Stamford, was a customer of Dr. Ahuja's on High Ridge Road in Stamford.
Well, I think Blowie is now.
Well, I don't know.
But I had a discussion online with Gennario at that computer, and I confronted him for like 40 minutes about it, and he said, if that judge is appointed by the governor, there's nothing I can do about it. I said, hold on, you're an administrative judge watching a guy, in Sam's case, our friend, had $150,000 in bail, which was excessive in the first place, and they jacked it to $650,000 for a guy who's never heard a flea, okay? He's a whistleblower. Heather's a whistleblower in her own right. I'm a whistleblower. I was the first whistleblower against Bernie Madoff in 2000, folks. I filed 300 lawsuits. They went nowhere. Chris, do you consider yourself a whistleblower?
100%, absolutely.
You just kind of got caught because of an injury, right?
Right.
And then hooked.
I got hooked into the system.
Since Chris is here, we were there was 20 of us, 20 victims, sexual assault victims in the courtroom. It took about 2 years to gather these people to get the strength up to go make a victim's impact statement in the courtroom. And I was the first one to go forward. Judge White screamed at the top of his lungs, and then, Chris, take over, so there's my witness right here. Chris.
Right. So Heather stood up and wanted to explain that she was the victim and requested her right to make a victim impact statement.
And we were sent there by the prosecutor's office.
Yes, the prosecutor sent us there.
And the victim's advocate, the criminal victim's advocate.
And Judge White said, I'm not going to hear any more statements from any victims. Sit down.
Yeah, he screamed at the top of his lungs, sit down.
Right.
And you don't sit down. You're in a criminal court. The marshals will take you away. They're all standing there waiting to make arrests.
Right.
So that isn't going to stop me. I petitioned the court, and it is unbelievable because usually they just blow you off and they start telling you if you don't leave, we're going to arrest you. But in this one case, we actually did go in the next courtroom on a different day, and a few of us went in. Were you there that day?
Keep going and I'll tell you.
All right. So Chris was there, and other victims were there. People that had lost their children to overdoses from Dr. Ahuja were in that courtroom ready to testify. Now, we lost all those people. Why? Because, excuse me. That was in Judge Hudok's courtroom, and here's what Judge Hudok said when I was brought before the court to speak. I will stand behind Judge White until the end of time. Now, that's not an independent tribunal. That's against all their laws as being a judge. You have to be independent of the other judges. But in the Stamford court and all the other courts that I know of in Connecticut, they're one phone call away. They make the phone call ex parte, and they make their little deals and their little arrangements. If I'm being a pain in the tail, they call up Stamford. Oh, yeah, here she is. My police reports say she's wearing the doorstep out in the local police departments and law enforcement agencies. I can bring that police report, and Johnny could put that up. These are all truthful statements. They can check whatever way they want. See, this is their worry, is because when you're telling the truth, the story gets repeated and repeated and repeated, identical each time, because it happened I have a letter of bribe I was arrested over because the cops figured, hey, we got her now. Well, who the hell in their right mind would write this bribe letter? So I was under house arrest, and by Monday morning, the police department called me and said, you're free to go. Because guess what? The lawyer admitted that, yes, in fact, they bribed me. And then they ended up taking
on the record.
On the record.
And no one carted them off.
Now, I was going to court on June 1st, and who shows up at my house with a gun and tells me on May 30th, for 2 days later, I was supposed to go to court, he tells me back off in court or else.
Intimidation of a witness.
And they do nothing. Now, I know other individuals that I've lost a lot of respect for because of the way that they litigate, but beside the fact, that's what they're doing to other victims, and they're arrested for it. And they've got, $500,000 bail on their head for doing the same thing that this guy did to me, Michael Ahuja, and they refused to do the arrest. The police department, for the first time, did the right thing. This young police officer, Zopi, very respectful young officer, he did the right thing. He wrote the report up. He went to the prosecutor. Because they don't do anything, Johnny stands up for me. So he comes down to the police department.
We're experiencing problems like never before, folks. So 3 times I brought a federal warrant to view the Edison system of the interoffice connections between these judges, because we have transcripts where Randolph speaks to about Blowy with Tamaccio, the prosecutor, saying what 6 other judges had in private conference without the parties present.
That's throughout many cases. I'm a court sitter, and I go in
Hold on. So the clerks that were served with a federal subpoena say to me, Ryan Flanagan, Jonathan Bubar, Megan McCaffrey, all say, we don't have to follow a federal warrant, a federal subpoena. Say, gee, hold on a second. Here's the federal court, and here's you guys. And this is Judge Meyer. Okay, Judge Meyer is this case here on screen. He's the judge. Keep in mind this. Every motion we've filed as pro se litigators, denied. Every articulation, denied. Every motion for deposition, denied. All 50 subpoenas on hold till he dismisses the case about radiation and autism. Okay? So there are problems here. In 5 years' time, we may find out when 6G is here that we have no youths that aren't autistic, that we don't have anyone without cancer, that we don't have anyone who is got an immune system left after forced vaccinations, mRNA technology, all the side effects of VAERS, which are numerous, myocarditis, all these things related to bad decisions by the governor of the state of Connecticut, who I asked 2 months ago at a discussion. I walked up to them. They said, no questions. I said, one question. They said, okay, ask it. I said, is 5G safe? The guy goes, I don't know. Meanwhile, what the hell? What the hell? So he's a year and a half into a lawsuit, and the Attorney General who's defending the people who broke the law. The Attorney General's office should be working for the residents and voters of the state of Connecticut who put him in office, and not for the Secretary of State that is rigging elections all over the country, which I can prove. So the fact that they're going after him, and I helped him, or whatever, I tried, or they're going after Heather, folks, if you don't start bitching and moaning about the motions that are filed and dismissed in your court, you're going to have no First Amendment right. You're going to have no Second Amendment right. You're going to be living in a one world order
But we already are, Johnny. We're
15
not
minute
getting
cities.
any. We're not
Yeah.
getting any.
What does the
rights.
World
Hey,
Economic Forum
we have
say?
5 seconds to 1 hour. Let's keep it
You'll
at 1
own
hour.
nothing and be happy. That's the future we can expect if we allow this to go unmitigated.
Please contact Johnny. Please
No, I can't
contact.
take it anymore. Please contact someone else. Have a great day.
Yep, God
Thank you.
bless.
We got to keep it at an hour,
God
obviously. But there is hope, folks.
Amen.
But you need to vote Chris Murphy out, Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Senator,
Horrible.
and of course Skeletor.
Skeletor and Blumenthal too.
Bye.